US President Donald Trump has ordered an additional 500 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. after 2 West Virginia National Guard members were shot a few blocks from the White House. This as officials confirm that the suspect was taken into custody. The suspect, accused of critically wounding 2 National Guard members in a shooting near the White House on Wednesday afternoon local time, is a man from Afghanistan as per reports. But this attack comes amid Mr. Trump's highly contentious deployment of troops to the nation's capital. Just last week, a federal judge had ordered a temporary suspension of the deployment, finding that it was likely illegal. But the Trump administration has asked for that decision to be blocked after this shooting. This is a fast-developing and deeply unsettling story unfolding in the heart of Washington, D.C. at the moment. The FBI is probing this as a possible act of terrorism. This is what reports state. Donald Trump, though, has ordered an additional 500 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. Tony Waterman joins us live from Washington, D.C. with all the latest details at this point. Tony, thanks so much for making time for us. We know the suspect has been identified as an Afghan national now, but what more are investigators revealing at this hour about the background, his movements, and whether he acted alone?
Well, U.S. officials have not themselves confirmed this identification of this individual. This is being reported in U.S. Media. They say that this is an Afghan national, somebody that came over to the United States in the wake of the U.S. withdrawal back in 2021. He came over, they say, on a special visa that was given to Afghani nationals that had helped the United States and its allies during that very long war, and that the visa has since expired. So he'd been in the United States illegally. They say that this is a 29-year-old man. But again, this has not been confirmed by officials. This is still very early in this investigation. They say that he has been taken into custody. They were able to take his fingerprints, and it seems as if that is how they tracked down his identity. But we are still waiting to get more information on those very questions that you just asked. How did this come to be? What is his motive? What were his movements before and during this attack? What we have heard and what officials have confirmed is that this attack took place around 2:15 on Wednesday afternoon. So we're talking about an attack taking place in broad daylight, and the mayor of D.C. is calling this a targeted attack. And I just kind of want to put this into perspective for you, because I am standing on the roof of our offices here in D.C., and this shooting took place literally right downstairs and across the street from where I'm standing, outside of a metro stop, and you can see the White House here behind me. So we're talking about this taking place just 2 blocks from the White House. The president is not here at the moment. He is in Florida at his Mar-a-Lago residence for Thanksgiving. But the Secret Service says they are going to start investigating this to see if it had broader political implications, or if it was meant to be targeting the White House, if it was meant to be targeting a high-ranking official. They really want to know what the motive was in this attack.
Clarification there from Tony. Reports are currently stating that the suspect has been identified as an Afghan national, but we are waiting for an official statement from US officials to reflect the same. Meanwhile, could you confirm, Tony, the FBI is probing this as a possible act of terrorism?
That is what the reports are saying right now. Okay. So this is kind of standard practice when it comes to attacks here in the United States. That is one of the things that is always looked into, whether or not this is a terrorist attack. Again, if this individual is confirmed to have been from Afghanistan, if he was here on a special visa and overstayed it, I mean, there could be a lot of, reasons behind this where they would want to investigate it on this point. But this is something else at play here. These National Guard troops have been deployed across mostly Democratic U.S. cities, starting in August with 2,100 people deployed here in D.C. And it's hugely, hugely controversial. We have seen a lot of protests about their presence here. I mean, I have spoken to people here in D.C. a lot that have talked about how they feel as if the city is being invaded, that it's being taken over by these National Guard troops. The president and the Trump administration has said that this is all about law and order. This is about deterring crime in these cities. But critics of this policy really believe that the motive is far more sinister. They see it as a form of political intimidation meant to suppress dissent and opposition. And we have seen in recent months these clashes between troops and protesters, and tensions are running very high. But by and large, here in D.C., these National Guard troops have become common sight. They're out patrolling the national monuments. They're standing outside of metro stations like we've seen here with the shooting taking place on Wednesday. Some of them are just going around picking up trash off the street. So they have become a common sight. And for critics, that is part of the problem, making this normal, normalizing the sight of troops on U.S. streets.
Indeed. In fact, Mr. Hexet says he is deploying 500 additional National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. at Trump's request, despite the court order that's in place. Tell us, Tony, though, are security agencies now expanding the perimeter around the White House, which is in your background, or tightening surveillance after this breach so close to the power centers?
Well, the White House has been in lockdown since this shooting took place. And to be honest, there is always a big barrier around the White House to begin with. And I noticed actually on the backside of the White House this past weekend that they've extended that barrier even further, perhaps as they're putting up these Christmas decorations. But it is seeming as if the White House is becoming more and more insulated. You're right, though. There was this federal judge that ruled just last week that the deployment of the National Guard troops here in D.C. is likely illegal. But the Trump administration late on Wednesday filed an emergency order asking a judge to keep the National Guard in D.C. And the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, says that the president is now deploying an additional 500 national soldiers to the cities. It seems that the proximity to the White House has something to do with that. Again, wanting to make sure that the White House and its inhabitants, its residents, are safe.
Right. We are given to understand that the National Guard members, though, that were shot were among 2,000 of the ones that are deployed currently in the city. Tell us, as per the data, Tony, has crime really fallen in Washington since the National Guard was deployed?
Well, crime was already starting to trend downwards. It had been trending downwards for a couple of years before these troops were deployed. And that is part of the reason why people were so upset that they were being deployed, because the president was saying that it was to deter crime. It was because of these high crime rates. But crime has been trending lower, and we've been seeing the same thing in other cities across the United States. Of course, with troops on the ground, there is a deterrence effect. When it comes to crime, people aren't going to be, going out and robbing somebody or trying to break into a shop if the National Guard is standing right outside. So it seems as if there's been some sort of impact. The real question is how much staying power does that have? Because just deploying troops on the ground in the United States is not addressing the root problems of crime. And experts will say if the administration was really looking to reduce crime for the long term, that they would really be focusing on problems like crime prevention, gang intervention programs, making sure that people have jobs and access to health care. And what we've actually seen under the Trump administration is a cutting back of a lot of those services.
Tony, I just want to talk about J.D. Vance's comments for a moment. It was prayers for the wounded, followed by a turkey joke. That's stirred quite the debate from what I have read. How are those remarks being received in Washington, where you are?
Well, there's a lot of people that are questioning those remarks. And also, I mean, the J.D. Vance came out and was really talking about, the service that these National Guard troops perform here in the United States, that they're sort of at the spear of safety here in the U.S. And that has really been what we have seen from the Trump administration. They are very pro-military. We have seen a doubling down from the defense secretary when it comes to these troops. And certainly the president has come out on social media. He's calling this alleged suspect an animal, saying that justice is going to be served. If it comes to pass that one or both of these National Guard troops were to pass because of their injuries, which seem to be very, very severe at this point, we're talking about potential death penalty for this individual here in D.C., something that is completely uncommon and rare taking place.